Hello and welcome to ENDORSE, the very first European data conference on reference data and semantics. Now, we know at the moment that knowledge in organizations has never been more important, and it's a significant challenge to manage the huge volumes of value-rich data that we see. So today and over the coming 4 days, we're going to talk about the creation, the curation, and the sharing of reference data, as these are the absolute foundation stones of knowledge management. Now, the ENDORSE conference will create an opportunity to link expertise to tackle current and future issues in the fields of interoperability and knowledge management, in particular for our public administrations. So you're very welcome here today. We're going to have a great conversation. We've got lots of ways we would like you to interact with us. Of course, we want you to share on social media. Please use the hashtag ENDORSE2021, and you can send those out via Twitter. There are accounts you can follow. You can follow EU Law Data Pubs, EU Publications, EU_Open Data, and EURLEX. Those are all available there on Twitter. Follow those. We'll be sharing information throughout the coming 4 days. We're also going to interact with you via a tool called Slido. That's very easy to use. You can just go to your browser and go to sly.do or slido.com. There you will enter the ENDORSE 2021 hashtag. So let's give you a chance to do that now. I'm going to do that on my tablet because I'm going to keep an eye on this throughout the next 4 days and try and engage with you and get your responses. So this is just a quick warm-up test. We're asking which country are you located in right now. So type that in there and we'll have a look in due course and see where people are based. That is one of the benefits of these new online conferences that we're doing, is that we can get across to a much wider audience than would be possible in one room. We're trying to find a silver lining even in these difficult times. But with that, I'm going to tell you today's topic that we're going to be talking about is reference data governance in cross-organizational environments. That's the theme for today. There'll be various different tracks. I'll tell you about those as we go along. But now it is my very great pleasure to open this ENDORSE conference for the first time, the European Commissioner for Budget and Administration, Johannes Hahn. Sir, the floor is yours. Commissioner, you're there.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a great pleasure to be with you today to open the first European data conference on reference data and semantics. The short name of the conference, ENDORSE, captures why we are here today. We have come to endorse the efforts which boost digital cooperation across the European Union and beyond, in public administration and beyond, towards a Europe fit for the digital age. First of all, allow me to welcome all the speakers who are going to make their contributions to the rich program of the next 4 afternoons. Together, they bring valuable expertise from a variety of fields, professions, and countries. Specialists from the administrations of member states, from the European institutions, from the United Nations, but also academic researchers and professionals from the private sector, which will enrich our thinking. And of course, I would like to welcome all of you who have joined us today. I was pleased to learn that participation far exceeds expectations. To me, this confirms that what is at stake here is essential. I suspect that most of you are likely to be experts, be it practitioners, researchers, or solution seekers. A great mix of people and backgrounds, which will help us to drive innovation forward and deliver a digital transformation that works for our citizens and businesses. This conference will be our great opportunity to share experiences and find a way forward in improving knowledge management and in addressing the silos that still exist. However, before we deep dive into the technical elements, please allow me to take a step back and reflect on the big picture. What is at stake and why is it important? Interoperability is certainly not a word that rolls off the tongue, but interoperability, in a nutshell, is actually at the very heart of our European project. We don't need to be computer scientists to understand this. This is what seamlessly allows, let's say, a Swedish citizen to have his academic title acquired, for instance, in Germany, automatically recognized and valid in Italy, where he can work and then retire, let's say in Spain, where he enjoys his pension benefits and health coverage while driving with his Swedish issued driving license. Interoperability is what allows us to create common European spaces, ultimately the single market, and deepen our integration. Up until recently, most people didn't realize how essential digital interoperability is. But with COVID-19 and the digital measures we are taking to help up, track and trace and reopen our society, interoperability has become one of the hottest political topics in the Union. One illustration of this is the COVID Tracer app. Simply put, the benefit drastically decreases and the risk sharply increases if an app created by one member state cannot talk to another app created by a different member state. The virus itself is interoperable. It doesn't stop at borders, and therefore neither should our applications. As we enter deeper into the digital sphere, interoperability requires the whole essence of its meaning, as a new generation of exciting technologies is emerging. Artificial intelligence, supercomputers, Internet of Things, big data. These technologies can literally benefit all sectors: healthcare, industry, environmental protection, and of course, governments. I often hear that data is the new oil in the digital economy. However, in my opinion, there is one major difference because unlike oil, data is not a finite resource. It can be used and reused without losing value. In fact, it can become better and more valuable the more we use it. For this to happen, our data need to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Otherwise, the knowledge in which this data can be translated cannot flow, cannot be linked, and therefore has only very limited value. This is why data is at the core of this Commission's digital strategy. A lot of work has already been done. In 2016, we adopted a communication setting up information and communication technology standardization. This identified a list of priority building blocks, among which the improved standardization was the most urgent. We proposed a high-level political process to deliver and ensure leadership through standards, fostering high-level commitment from a broad stakeholder base, which includes industry, standard-setting organizations, the research community, and the union and national administrations. This conference today is a continuation of this process. Last week, the Commission adopted a communication on the digital decade, which proposes digital targets for 2030. The communication includes a pillar on public administrations with a rather ambitious target of 100% digital public services by 2030, and it stresses that we need to invest in interoperability to make this happen. Currently, we are at a critical turning point. Our economies need a stimulus to recover from the impact of the ongoing pandemic. The Next Generation EU Recovery Plan, worth 750 billion euro, comes to address exactly that. It's the largest investment plan in Europe's history, and at least 20% of it will fund digital investment. As part of this investment, we have committed to build a European cloud, a world-class infrastructure to store and manage data with the highest standards on security, privacy, and above all, portability of data. This is where we need your help Interoperability of data is the ground principle on which the success of our digital decade rests, and semantics is one of the central components, as it provides the necessary clue to ensure it. Before closing, I would like to thank colleagues at the Publication Office and DigiDigit for organizing this conference and making this exchange possible. I hope that all of you will make the most of it and help us make progress towards the digital transformation. Welcome and enjoy the discussions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I hope you'll be able to tune in to see some of it over the next 4 days as well. With that, we are going to turn now indeed to the Publications Office of the European Union and Acting Director António Carneiro for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and guests, I am very pleased to welcome you at this virtual EU conference on reference data and semantics. ENDORSE is the first event of its kind organized by the Publications Office of the European Union with the support of this Square program of the European Union. In what concerns the Publications Office, our strategic objectives for the coming years until 2025 call for linked EU information, increased interoperability, and federated search, or, in other words, seamless navigation experience. And your combined expertise, knowledge, and experience shared through discussions will help us advance in all these key objectives. At the same time, working towards these goals, we found a natural partner in ESA Square, the latest in a series of programs to promote interoperability between administrations across the European Union. The current program was conceived to support the development of digital solutions that enable public administrations, businesses, and citizens in Europe to benefit from interoperable cross-border and cross-sector public services. I would like to thank ESA Square for the support it provided in organizing this event. Since the start of the pandemic last year, the importance of our activities towards interoperability of data has been highlighted. European citizens have had to radically realign their lives to the new reality. For the most part, this has meant rapidly migrating our personal and professional lives online, this conference including. The significant shift entails a broad range of policy measures aimed at reinforcing Europe's strategic autonomy and building its own market for data. These policy measures include the Data Governance Act and the forthcoming Data Act, expected later this year, designed to foster data interoperability for the public interest. And in this process, this conference is a great opportunity to provide policymakers with valuable inputs and insights from various areas of public administration and business. What has also been highlighted by the pandemic, in addition to the importance of metadata as a critical factor for making content smart, is the existence of data silos and the pain that organizations, especially public administrations, suffer to work around these silos. Although there may be understandable, often historic or security reasons for silos to exist, the final result is that data doesn't translate into information the way we may desire. The key to improve this lies in data governance, which is about turning data, even big data, into information. Many organizations capture and use data for operational purposes, but they do not look at the data from a business process perspective and do not use it for better decision making. This is where we can and must make a contribution. In this sense, when we talk about data governance, we are in fact talking about holistic metadata management that includes people, processes, and new technology. Semantic approach can help us liberate data from rows and columns to go beyond categories and taxonomies. The strive towards interoperability is currently a reactive one. It is an effort to bridge different worlds that have already been designed and they already exist. The more we achieve on this, the greater things we can expect, no doubt. But my personal vision for interoperability is for us all to reach, at some point, a proactive approach. This would mean work together towards creating a common universe. Therefore, I dare to say that interoperability is not only a technical or organizational challenge, but it's also a cultural one. And conferences such as ENDORSE can certainly help towards this goal. The event is taking place during the Portuguese presidency of the EU Council, which has been very active in supporting digital and data-related initiatives and endorses our efforts. Portugal is part of the trio, also composed of Germany and Slovenia, that adopted a declaration outlining the main areas of focus, which include digitalization. We are also pleased that our conference is taking place under the auspices of Mr. Johannes Hahn, Commission for Budget and Administration. Your support confirms the importance and values of our joint efforts towards data that is accessible, meaningful, and interoperable. Finally, I want to thank all the speakers and experts who have come to contribute to this shared goal. Thank you for your willingness to share your valuable experience. Before I give the floor to the Masters of Ceremony, who will navigate you through the program, let me wish you all a great afternoon. And not just one, but 4 afternoons. Enjoy this unique conference, and let's keep our forces joined for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, António. Good to see you joining us remotely. Let's have a look now at where other people are joining us from. Have a look at that Slido poll that we put up there to allow you to say where you were joining us from. I think if we have a look online, we can see lots of people joining from Belgium and Luxembourg, all across the EU, Helsinki, Sweden. I even see there India and the USA. So we've got a great reach today, so I'm delighted with that. If you're looking at your Slido, you can also see there is a Q&A tool there. Now you can go to Q&A and ask your questions of our speakers. Feel free to do that throughout today. We'll be keeping an eye on it to see what you've got to say about our great speakers. And with that, we will now move on to our keynote to really kick off the conversation. Pieter Colpaert, who is a postdoctoral researcher in public web APIs at Ghent University, he is going to be telling us about linked data event streams, the core API for publishing base registries, and sensor data. Pieter, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank
Can
you
you hear me?
Yes. I can indeed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all for welcoming me to this conference, and great that you're willing to join a talk on linked data event streams and what I think should be the base API for open data sets. I'll quickly share my screen. Let's not forget that. There we go. I'm Pieter Colpaert. I'm from the city of Ghent. There's a picture of Ghent. It's the most beautiful city in Belgium. So if you stop by, although there might be some people disagreeing in the audience, but if you stop by, please let me know. I'll gladly show you around the most beautiful city in the world. But first, a question. And the question is, what is the best API to publish an open data set? This is a question that has been haunting me for quite some time right now. And it's a really difficult one to answer because you have the reusers who have certain needs and you have the publishers that have a certain budget. And I'm pretty sure that certain people in the audience will say, well, we're working with semantics here, right? So of course, we're working with linked data, RDF. we should go towards a Sparkle endpoint. A Sparkle endpoint was designed to be the mother of all APIs. You can ask any query to that interface, and you will have an answer. However, other people in the audience will probably be geospatial experts. And geospatial experts, they mainly like OGC compliant APIs, such as Web Feature Service, and they coded their applications against Web Feature Services. So the question becomes, are you also going to set up that WFS service? And with that, also every other possible web API that may come into existence. Also, once that you put online one of these APIs on top of your data set, you will always have to keep them online, because who knows that one GIS application might still want to use that specific API. And this is what I call the maintenance hell. It is a keeping the lights on syndrome almost. You will have a certain budget, and all that budget will go to maintaining legacy APIs. So instead, of course, there's an alternative, and the alternative is sharing a data dump. And sharing a data dump works well, right? Because you give any flexibility to the reusers. The reusers can, for example, now decide to, I need an auto-completion API. I will, for example, use an Elasticsearch instance, and I will put that online on my system. I will import that data dump, and my awesome application will be able to work on top of that auto-completion API. I can code against it, and I can make sure that I have control over that API. So it's also me, the reuser, that needs to maintain that querying interface. However, this is already better, but there's a replication hell, as I would like to frame it. A replication hell, why? Because, for example, at the Flemish government, we have the address registry, and I think many other governments throughout Europe have, of course, address registries. But from the moment that someone at the local government wanted to know the completion feature, they needed to copy that one data dump. And now some municipalities changed. And what we see is that local governments started to apply changes locally, and they didn't pull it from the master source. So we have over here a problem with master data management. Of course, instead, as you already may have guessed from the title of this talk, I propose to publish event streams. Event streams will focus on live replication of the data sets. They're almost a marketing term, you could say, to just say, look, this is my data set, and these are the latest changes on top of my data set. If you replicate this dataset, also make sure to always download the latest changes onto your own system. And this WFS service, this auto-completion API, the Sparkle endpoint, and whatnot, they will all be kept in sync thanks to the event stream. But there's no technical specification yet for that. So we decided to look at European interoperability framework, as anyone, of course, would do that works in a European context. The European interoperability framework, or EIF for the friends, I'm a big fan. It contains all the interoperability issues that need to be solved in order to work towards automated adoption of data sets. For example, 3.5 specifies semantic interoperability, and you won't be surprised that I'm a big defender of RDF and linked data. So I think linked data is not the solution, but it is a framework to work towards a solution for semantic interoperability. Having your standards and having your vocabularies and your taxonomies and your reference data sets and so on available as linked data is a first key step into making sure that all the data sets can become more intertwined. 4.3.3 specifies base registries. And base registries, I find that such an interesting term, because they define that someone is the authoritative source for a certain piece of data. And from the moment that someone referred to a certain piece of information, I believe that that piece of information at that moment should also evolve, but also you should be able to find the older version again as well. So the solution to base registries, in my opinion, would be event streams, making sure that you have lifecycle management over all your objects and that you define what these objects are. 3.6 defines technical interoperability and this danger of fragmented ICT islands and legacy systems. I think for that, we need to work towards evolvable web API designs. And in order to do that, this evolvable web API designs, we didn't find any specification just yet in the linked data spheres. There are some in the event stream management systems, but not really on the web with linked data. So that's why we are happy to today launch the first version of the CEMEC Europe specification on linked data event streams. You can download it, or you can read it at w3id.org/LDES/specification. And it just gives a simple definition of what a linked data event stream is. It is a collection of immutable objects, so objects that don't change because they're version objects. So once you downloaded an object, you will never have to download that object again. And that collection is ever growing. So it will keep, objects will keep being added to it. It's an append-only interface, if you will. But even with linked data event streams, we did not solve the entire problem, because consumers cannot replicate the entire web. Meaning that if I want to set up a WFS service that works across the entire world, that means that I would need to download all these geospatial data sets and have to download all the linked data event streams from the entire world onto my own system to make sure that I can host the WFS system on top of that. So there's somewhere something missing in this constellation. And what I think the solution there becomes is that on the basis of this linked data event stream, I want to make sure that there is a possibility for fragmentations, so that you can have derived fragmentations that someone else or yourself can host in order to speed up certain type of replication or even querying. For example, for geospatial tiling of an event stream, you could say, I want this address registry. I will make sure that I will copy this to my intermediary server, and this intermediary server will put every event that comes in, we will put it in the right geospatial fragment. Then a reuser, like a WFS service, can discover this fragmentation and can say, I only have a question where I need, for example, to download things in Brussels. That means that I only need to download just in time the 4 tiles that are located in Brussels, and I can still provide the necessary very specific individualized querying functionality. I can provide that on the reuser's premises. And the same is also possible not only for geospatial fragmentations, but also for text indexing. Like you would be able to have a text index in which you say the root node will point towards another linked data event stream where all the elements will start with the letter A. Then you would be able to have node completion functionality that from the moment you type the letter A, that, for example, Aarhus would be able to be auto-completed. In order to have these fragmentations as an evolvable web API, we reused the tree specification. So at w3id.org/tree/specification, you will be able to find how we see this collection design of linked data event streams, and then how we are able to fragment linked data event streams in geospatial tiles, in time-based indexes, in string-based indexes, in anything basically on which you would otherwise also put an index on top of your own database. Now you put this index available on the web for query agents on the web to reuse that specific fragmentation. Of course, there is a big debate about core tasks. What should you do as a data publisher or as a public administration, and what should be done by others? For this, we have also introduced a priority shield. You won't be surprised that I think that without any doubt, your core task as a data publisher should first and foremost be hosting that linked data event streams. It gives you full flexibility towards your data consumers without you having to invest in special features. If someone wants a hexagonal interface in which you visualize the data on a map, that can be fully made by a third party without you having to invest in other IT infrastructure. And this is what we want to make sure that other people can immediately start doing. This is breaking down barriers in order to starting to reuse your data set. A second priority is to also build indexes yourself on top of your linked data event stream. For example, if you maintain a data set of, let's say, truck parking lots near highways in Europe, then of course you're driving mostly with a truck. So while you're driving with that truck and you're looking for a parking lot, then of course you don't need, if you're driving in France, for example, you will not need any parking lot information of Finland. So I think maybe immediately at the source, then a geospatial fragmentation would make sense. So why not immediately also then put it next to the core? But you should be able to have that in an evolvable fashion, because other people can also host this interface of a geospatial tiling. And this is, for example, then what third parties also can take up. Third parties can join forces and make sure that the right indexes are available for their collaborative use cases. And speaking of these use cases, I am currently applying this vision in quite some projects, and I want to introduce 3 of them to you today. Because we have a good reason to say that these third parties joining forces in order to answer these queries for a certain ecosystem, that is already happening today, in fact. But we just need to automate it. We just need a way to better structure that collaboration and make sure that it's clearly visible what the master data source is and what is fragmentation. So for cultural heritage in the Netherlands, we work together with the Dutch Digital Heritage Network, and you won't be surprised that Vincent van Gogh, a Dutch painter, has many paintings across different musea. But all these different musea, they are also publishing data on their website, and they're also publishing open data about, hey, these are the paintings in our collection. And they're all pointing towards, hey, this is then Vincent van, this one is made by Vincent van Gogh, but they don't use the same strings to refer to Vincent van Gogh. I don't need to convince this audience that the solution, of course, is create a reference data set, make sure that there's a core taxonomy of artists, and that you just have a global identifier to refer to Vincent van Gogh. But one of the most important things that they need, of course, is that they need a text index on top of that. They, from the moment that someone at one specific museum starts typing, that they get an autocompletion and that they can point to the right global identifier that is reused across the ecosystem. And that's why we now created, or that we are now trying to convince all the museums in the Netherlands to publish a linked data event stream from their collection, that then the Dutch Digital Heritage Network can replicate all these event streams, can put a text index on top of that, and that then, even without dynamic server functionality, but merely by fragmenting these linked data event streams, that you can provide autocompletion functionality. We have a demo. It is what you would expect from a demo, auto-completing something. But the cool thing is that we've achieved federated full text search by not by making sure that that these different sources are kept separate, and they are also fragmented separately. And by doing that, my client can just in time fetch fragments from different sources at once and decide, when I want to complete flower, there's 3 data sources that have something concerning flower. And I have the global identifier now to refer to that concept. We published about that, so I can always send you the paper, and there's also some nice demos that you can see at github.com/3cg. A second use case is for the European Railway Agency. There we are trying to create a railway compatibility checker. So what is the use case? That is that many member states, they have railway infrastructure managers, like Infrabel, ProRail, SNCF Réseau, Deutsche Bahn, and so on. and they provide the master data source of all the tracks and all the operational points and so on, but they need to provide that towards a European data set as well, called the RINF, short for Railway Infrastructure. And then you have the railway undertakings, so the people who drive or the companies that drive vehicles across these tracks. And these are the railway undertakings. And the railway undertakings, of course, want to make sure before they plan to commercialize a certain route, they want to make sure that that specific vehicle that they want to use to go from one point to another is compatible with that set of tracks. So that's why we need a route compatibility check. And what we did is now we advised towards the European Railway Agency to make sure that we can set up an initiative where all the infrastructure managers that they're publishing linked data event streams from their own master data, because from that moment on we can make sure that the intermediary, the European Agency for Railways, can set up a geospatial fragmentation and then make sure that, for example, using a WFS or through a different kind of API, that we can set up a route compatibility checker. This can be this already is now in prototype version, and you will be able to see a presentation about that by my colleague Julian Rojas at 3:30, I think, as well during the ENDORSE conference. So do check that out. But one important aspect of this route compatibility check is the fact that once you did that route compatibility check, and then 10 years later you want to check why you chose that indeed that vehicle was indeed compatible, you can play back and you can travel back in time as if the data was at the status back then of that point 10 years ago. But you can also rerun the route compatibility check 10 years later to check what changed on the tracks. A third use case is sensor data. Because in Flanders, we are working on an evolvable sensor data platform. And for sensor data, which is often more fast-moving than reference data, I think we can apply the exact same vision. Over here, what did we put now in main architecture? This is the simplified version of our main architecture, but we put in that data providers, they can provide access to their data sets, but we will do as fast as possible a mapping to RDF. We will help them with that, and we will publish from the moment that it's RDF. We will make sure that it's published as a linked data event stream. That linked data event stream, in its turn, can go through several projections, and these are then each time derived linked data event streams that would come out. These projections can, for example, be a shackle shape translation, so translating it, for example, from schema.org to an ISA square core vocabulary. It can be a link to other sources. For example, if one of the data sources wasn't linked to Europeana before, we can now link it to Europeana. As this is about sensor data, it may also need anonymization. So that can also be a step that's done in there. Of course, what we also see as a projection is these are fragmenting the data in certain indexes. That's that step, or even archive the data set. So make sure that if the original source is not archiving it, that we can have retention policies on that, and that we can have an archival infrastructure on that. All these linked data event streams, derived and master linked data event streams, will be put in a metadata catalog, or at least the metadata will be put in the metadata catalog, and the data consumers will be able to read from that metadata catalog and will be able to choose the right fragmentations just in time in order to answer a certain question. And that way you will, I think, automate the data adoption cycle towards even the moment you just want to query. That at that moment you can start the data integration and you will succeed. When users still want a Sparkle endpoint, a GraphQL interface, an OGC API, and whatnot, that's what you can do as a third priority on top of or a shield of priorities for data publishers. You can still offer this to them as a lowest priority without any promises to keep it online, because if you put it offline, you can still offer, for example, a Docker container in which they can say, is your application breaking? Okay, look, here's a Docker container that you can spin up in order to make sure that that Docker container can fetch the right data from the reusable indexes. And the reusable indexes, of course, get their data from the master data source. So this Docker container will always be able to fetch the right pieces of information at the right time to answer certain queries. And that Docker container can be, in order to keep it online, that will be paid for by the right organization, namely the organization that also performs the querying itself. Before leaving you, I will leave you with 3 takeaways. My first one is focus on the core. Accept that you cannot do everything. Your ecosystem will do the rest. The second thing is evolve your indexes as fast as you want. Make sure that you, at one point, you can set up a geospatial indexing and an auto-completion and a time index and so on. And another point, you can say, oh, we are suffering budget cuts. We will have to cut. And look, now we are only hosting the linked data event stream. But other parties that may have more budget in order to solve certain functionality can then keep online certain interfaces as they want. And third is traveling in time becomes possible because reference data, sensor data, and base registries, they need history for context. As a last side note, I want to say that we're hiring PhD students. So if you're a student in the audience and you want to do a PhD on linked data event streams and tree fragmentations and this entire vision, make sure to contact me. I will make time for you to make sure to check whether we can hire you in our team. And of course, when you're in Ghent, certainly let's grab a coffee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pieter. Now, as I invited our audience to ask questions via Slido, we have indeed got a few for you. First of all, Seth Van Holen said he was very pleased that you referenced the EIF. And if you're staying on track 1, we'll be talking to him later on. We also have a question regarding the EIF. I want to know, is the EIF can be adopted with SDMX standardization?
That's a difficult one, and because I would be inclined to say yes, it can certainly be done, but the question is a bit short to understand exactly what is intended by whether it can be achieved using that kind of standardization. So so I will go with yes, probably, and if you have a clear idea of what exactly you want to do, feel free to reach out and contact me, and let's see whether I have a more concrete answer for you.
Okay, we also have a question now as well from Dennis Deschandon, or Denis. How complex and time-consuming is it for an IT service to implement these specifications? Is it simply similar to developing yet another API?
Certainly, and it's as easy as developing another API, but it's even simpler because it really it is not an API with a lot of features. It is only all your objects that need a certain ordering, preferably chronologically, and that you can make sure that your older pages can all be archived. If you make sure that your older pages can be archived, and you will make sure that you let clients understand that okay, I don't need to re-download that, and the cache is immutable. That's interesting. But recently we had someone from the company Triply. I can make publicity for companies, right? But Triply implemented together with us. Or even just on their own in one sprint, a prototype of what on a linked data event stream on top of their triple store, and they at least told me that it's really simple and that it's possible even in 1 or 2 weeks to be able to build a linked data event stream on top of your original store. Yeah.
Okay, Eric Antizana wants to know, to sort of in your context, what's the definition of master data and reference data?
I don't have a clear definition, but I use the concepts as authoritative data. So making sure that there's one organization that has a certain mandate to host certain or to maintain certain identifiers, and that other people from their context can say, for me, that is the single source of truth.
Okay, we also then have a question on evolvable APIs. How about Hydra or Hypermedia API or GraphQL? Give us your thoughts, Pieter.
Hydra is really interesting because I started with Hydra. I really wanted to make it work in Hydra. But the problem is that the collection design in Hydra doesn't allow you to specify order already. So if you have a paged collection, you cannot specify how it's ordered. Truth be told, in LDP, for example, the linked data platform, there it is possible to have some ordering in there, but then still the ordering is one-dimensional. And what I always wanted was multidimensional. Why stick to a one-dimensional fragmentation if you can have an entire search tree that you can expose on top of your data set?
Okay, and also then another question from Janice. When is the linked data event stream specifications to be ready? And is there a way in which we can find training materials and start experimenting? Very keen there.
Well, I'm currently funded by the CEMIC program in order to make sure that there's some training material available by summer. So there will be training material by summer. The linked data event stream specification, I'm launching it today. So yesterday evening, I made sure that there are no to-dos anymore in the spec. Truth be told, some open issues and some ideas I still had were already drafted in the spec, but I just took them out and put them in issues right now. So also, if you want to help to shape further versions of the specification, I'm happy to take comments in the GitHub issue tracker. But today it is usable.
Okay, well, that is fantastic. That's great news. Thank you very much, Pieter. There's a real deep dive there. And thank you very much to our audience for your questions. I seemed to be very engaged in listening to what Pieter had to share and suggest. So I do encourage you to keep doing that. Throughout the next 4 days, we will be using these tools to interact. You can use that hashtag ENDORSE 2021 on social media, or go to Slido and put it in there and ask your questions, as well as, of course, following along on the event page. Now, each day that we are working over the next 4 days, we will be dividing into different tracks for part of the afternoon. Today, there are 2 different tracks. In track 1, we have reference data, and in track 2, we're talking about solutions. If you've registered already for those, you will have in your email the links to select those new tracks. Otherwise, you can scroll down the page and select which one you prefer to follow for the rest of this afternoon. So keep it with us. We're going to take a short break, but we will be back at 14:40 in the 2 parallel tracks so that you can follow along whichever one of those you like. And I will speak to you in very short time.